today. It's going to be fun and it's going to be somewhat casual as well. So I get to say hello and welcome you all this morning. I've said hello to just about everybody in the room. I'm Kathleen Curry, and I'm the CEO of TechBridge, so it's my great pleasure to welcome everyone here. And I think most everybody in the room knows who we are, but just kind of an overview is, our passion is to put technology to work so nonprofits can do more with certain people. It's really that simple. And the way that we do it currently is we are the IT department for 40 nonprofits here, small and large. We've got some of our clients in the room, so thank you very much. And one of the things that we do is we take care of everything. One of the things we know about nonprofits is the capability that nonprofits have inside their operation in terms of what people know, even from clearing a computer that's a printer that's jammed, getting on the internet, to working with 15 to 18 applications that are sitting on servers, to kind of figuring out how do I use a Windows 2000 environment and begin to communicate in today's world. So one of the things I come from, my personal background is I come from the corporate sector, and I taught technology, commercialization, entrepreneurship at Georgia Tech. So one of the things that I know is that if commercial companies could really solve the problems that we work with in nonprofits, they'd be doing it. And so one of the things that we're doing is we're really looking at affordability and how we make things work. So we are we have a knowledge center, so we're the 911 call center for the nonprofit community. And so, when nonprofits need help, they'll call our 911 center. We've got 4 people. We've got technology and systems that we can, help people, be able to get on the internet. One of my favorite quotes is Elizabeth Omalami from Jose Feed the Hungry. They called us one day, and they were like 3 weeks out from their big event at Turner Field at Thanksgiving, and she said if 2 of us get on the internet at the same time, it stops. So if you can, none of us can imagine. When we talk to the corporate community and say, can you imagine, having 30,000 people in Turner Field and not being able to get on the internet to do the work that you do? So what we were able to do is get them going, and then we went in and stabilized their infrastructure as well. One of the other things that we're doing is we're really passionate about affordable technologies. So one of the things we did a couple of years ago, about 18 months ago, is we said, what is the fundamental issue that nonprofits have? And basically what we did is we said, it's really paper. So paper in client tracking, and paper and funders and the funder mandated databases and all that sort of thing. When you go inside a nonprofit, what you see is a lot of paper. So we said we can talk about data and outcomes, but unless we solve the fundamental operational problems and issues, challenges within nonprofits, nothing is really going to happen. So over the last 18 months, we've launched an initiative that we call Transformative Services, and we're working with the Salesforce.com platform. We're working with SharePoint, Microsoft, both of those technologies that John did. We're working with developers in the corporate community. We have 94 sponsors that sponsor TechBridge. Home Depot was one of them, so we really appreciate being here. And we're solving foundational issues inside nonprofits. So we're sort of a group of, we've got 18 people at TechBridge. We're sort of technology operation teams. And that's one of the reasons why we're here today with the TechEd series. We appreciate the Home Depot in sponsoring this, as well as helping us with the panels and things like that, because one of the things that we want to do is we want to empower nonprofits to understand technology. One of the things we're talking about this morning is, with all the hype about technologies and iPads and gadgets and social media and all that sort of thing, the real thing of it is technology always works behind the curtain. When I talk to CIOs who are chief information officers inside the technology community, they run their operations with what we call big iron. It's big computers working in big data centers. Things that they're talking about is they're talking about security, and they're talking about data privacy, and they're talking about how do we keep this data as it moves all the way through the internet and back. How do we understand how to protect it ourselves and what the issues are? So we are just well delighted to be able to do this workshop today, and also to work in partnership with Pro Bono, partnership, and I would like to introduce Robin Miller, who is a staff attorney at Pro Bono Partnership. So thank you.
Thank you. Well, welcome everybody. Thank you all for coming, and I want to thank TechBridge for working with us. This is a first unique project for us to join together and put together a presentation like this. And I also want to thank our panelists. They put together an excellent presentation. I hope you will enjoy it. I want to just take a minute to tell you a little bit about Pro Bono Partnership of Atlanta. You have a couple slides that you will be taking with you that kind of explain that. Our mission is to provide free legal services to small nonprofits in the Metro Atlanta area, and that Metro Atlanta area is actually pretty large, that serve low-income or disadvantaged individuals. So if your nonprofit serves low-income or disadvantaged individuals and you are here today, you probably may qualify so long as you are not a large organization that can afford legal services. But how we do that is we match our clients with volunteer lawyers who work at leading corporations such as Home Depot. We have a number of volunteer lawyers in here, and we appreciate their assistance, as well as law firms throughout the city of Atlanta. And they graciously volunteer their time, including these two right here, who you're going to hear today, to do workshops as well as specific legal issues to address your legal needs. Anything from contracts to corporate work to intellectual property to risk management to real estate, you name it, we have lawyers that run the gamut. We have a brochure that's out front that's sort of just a little takeaway if you want at the registration desk as you leave. You need more information, and also there's some information on the slides as well. If you have any questions, I'll be here afterward as well. I hope you enjoyed the presentation, and again, thank you to TechBridge and Home Depot and our speakers.
Thank you. Okay, so I get to introduce these incredibly talented folks who not only are really good at what they do, but can also interpret what they do so that we can understand it. So one of the things is if anything happens today and there's terminology, there's something that you don't understand, raise your hand and ask the question. That's step number one, is please ask the question. There is no silly question, and that's one of the things that in the technology world, a lot of times we might assume that everybody knows what we're talking about, but when you don't, please ask. So first off, I'd like to introduce Andy Pepper. And Andy here, most recently, was the general counsel at a company called Equiterra, and they recently sold it to KPMG. And so he's been working with clients over the last 20 years, helping them with problems and issues, and specifically in the privacy and security world. So Andy, thank you. We're also really happy to have with us today Tammy Moskaitis. Did I do that?
You did it perfect. Believe me, not too many people say it.
Tammy is with the Home Depot. She is the Chief Information Security Officer. So I'm going to get sort of out of the light of the projector. So if you can imagine the Home Depot being in the retail business and having all kinds of information about employees, about credit cards, about their customers, and all those kinds of things, and Tammy is the one who keeps all that and worries about that for the Home Depot. So we're just delighted that she's here. And one of the things that you'll see from everybody on the panel today, you'll see their passion for being here. So Tammy and I were talking earlier, and she's just been in Atlanta for 2 years. So she was in Ohio, so it's great that she's now in Atlanta with us. And she was talking about working with nonprofits in the Ohio area, with vendors and with technology folks to really help solve some of these problems and some of the issues and bring the idea of security and what it means to the nonprofit space. So Tammy, thank you so much for being on this experience with us. And then we'd also like to introduce Kim Burska here. And Kim is, I will get this right, the Atlanta office managing partner of FSK and also has a really broad background working with her clients in terms of all kinds of corporate issues as well as privacy and security of data. So one of the things our panelists did is they got together so that they could understand what are the most important issues that they wanted to share with everyone today and who was best able to be able to share them. And it's always really good to hear different perspectives, so we all have different experiences and understand what is going on. So let's go.
All right, good morning, everyone. Good morning. I want to start by, I think I know that Kim and I and Tammy have agreed that the sooner we turn this into a conversation rather than a presentation, the happier we're going to be. So I thought we could start a little bit by, you've heard about who we are and why we're here. I'm interested to know why you all are here. And it's really helpful. I know that, I've done work with nonprofits over the years. So I'd kind of like to get just a quick go around the room and tell us your name and who you work for, what your nonprofit is and what you do. I think that's always of interest in a thing like this. So could we take a few minutes to do that?
I'm Timothy Mercer, and I work for Goodwill Industries in Southern Rivers in Columbus, Georgia. I just took the role of compliance and operations specialist for our mission services department. So that all of our mission services are CARF compliant, and a large part of CARF compliance is it's the protection of our clients' information and confidentiality and privacy.
How big is Goodwill, just in terms of like numbers of employees? Do you have a sense of that?
Well, our Goodwill, there's 4 major Goodwills here in Georgia. The Goodwill of North Georgia is the one that services the Atlanta area. There's Goodwill Southern Rivers is Columbus. Then there is Goodwill Middle Georgia, which is Macon and Augusta. And then there is Goodwill of Coastal Empire, which is Savannah. Our Goodwill has about 500 employees. Goodwill of North Georgia has considerably more than that. But pretty much it's about 500 employees. There are over 164 Goodwills throughout the United States and Canada. And we place a person into employment every 16 seconds. So our Goodwill last year placed over 2,000 people into employment, and we served over, I want to say, over 23,000 people. So,
Hi, my name is Jean Adero, and I work with a nonprofit called Our Reading Spaces, which is opening libraries in Africa. I'm currently working on a library program in the Kisumu area, which is in western Kenya. And this topic is really of personal interest to me. TechBridge is always put up with events, so I always
My name is Greta Hurst. I'm with the Side by Side Brain Injury Clubhouse, and we're a small nonprofit that's located in Stone Mountain, the village of, and we provide a day program for people with brain injury, and it's one of those things that we also deal with CARF and privacy issues of HIPAA and all of that kind of thing. So,
Great. And how many employees do you have?
we have 10 full-time employees.
So one of the things I wanted to just, I was hoping we could highlight this, that we have some really small organizations here and some really big organizations here. And what you'll hear, I mean, it's important to understand that privacy, if you're going to do it, it has to scale. Because what they do at Home Depot and Goodwill is dramatically different than what you do if you're a 10-person organization.
Oh, yes, my name is Rosemary Berman, and I'm Senior Specialist at United Way 211 in downtown Atlanta. And we primarily advocate on behalf of our clients who are in need of assistance with certain services like utilities, rent, mortgage.
Great.
My name is Hector Vargas. I work for United Way 211. We all do the same thing. So we also help on different projects like disasters when that happen. We receive grants and we help the community.
My name is Russell United Way 211. I'm a driver farm specialist.
Bridget Bradley with Adoption Discovery, and we educate potential parents for adopted children. Our goal is to solve the orphan crisis, and we are about to launch an online technology tool where people can get education about all their options for adoption, how to do a $0 adoption, and they'll be able to do it online, on demand, any time of day.
You don't have any privacy issues.
Great.
That sounds great.
I'm Christy Winter. I'm with Families First here in Atlanta, and I'm the Director of Continuous Quality Improvement for them. We have about 250 employees, about 34 programs that are in 3 kind of main impact areas. Child and youth permanency, we work in kind of supportive housing around moving people from homelessness into housing, and then healthy families and relationships, which is counseling and parenting and those types of services. Because we have 34 programs and we have various databases that are required by funders or our internal database, and then there's just so much data flowing in and out of our organization that this is a big concern for us.
I am Ken Bowman. I am the Program Director at Must Ministries for our Marietta location. We serve our community, particularly the communities of Cobb and Cherokee counties. We have a food pantry, clothing closet, we do employment and education, limited amounts of financial aid, as well as housing programs. We have an emergency shelter, as well as supportive housing programs also.
Antoinette Arnold, also with United Way 201 case.
My name is
is Jennifer Gwynn, and I'm the executive director of an organization called Pebble Tossers, and we're an online resource for kids and families to find volunteer projects that are suited with their needs. So we collect some personal information about kids.
Yeah. Okay.
Good morning, my name is Dr. Gary White. I'm with Families First. Well, I'm the Compliance and Program Development Manager there, so outside of ensuring that the programs are in compliance with all regulatory bodies, I also have the responsibility of trying to ensure that we stick as close to this as possible as well.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Hi, my name is Gerald Owens. I'm with Comcast. I'm the guy who supplied you guys with stuff to make sure you stay safe. I've been working with TechBridge for about 2 years with Kathleen and Walt, and I volunteer a lot of my time, and because I believe in what they're doing a fantastic job, and to help come and see people like you in need, you know, is a big concern of mine, because just want to make sure people stay safe. I know it's privacy information that is out there, and TechBridge is doing a wonderful job. It's just a wonderful organization to be part of. So,
thanks for helping.
No problem.
My name is Christine Nelson. I'm with the Chattanooga Nature Center. We're an environmental education facility located in Roswell. We have approximately 20 full-time employees and 20 to 25 part-time. And then seasonally, we increase that by another 50 to 60 employees with our camp program. So kind of running in based on seasonality. My role there, I actually have a few different hats, but one of them is the IT director hat that I wear. So I am responsible for all of our IT equipment, servers, our e-commerce site, all the other things on property. And I actually just went through last year PCI compliance, so getting us to where we need to do that. So with our e-commerce site and also our point of sales in our stores.
So you mean people in nonprofits often wear multiple hats?
Oh yeah, yeah. Any form of day. So.
Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Sandra Murray with TechBridge.
Good morning, I'm Patsy Mulcahy, and I'm the manager of communications supporting the IT group here at Comcast.
And I did want to take a moment and thank Home Depot for hosting us in this nice facility.
My name is Lynn Metcalf. I'm with Verizon Business. I'm the senior security solutions advisor for the Georgia region. And we've been underrepresented in our security practice in Georgia, so we're looking for ways to get involved, and I thought this would be a good first step.
Okay, well, you can keep us honest.
I'm Trip Cook. I'm with DIR Consulting. We're a very small niche firm, only 2 employees. Actually, that's seasonal, though. Not if we don't staff up that many, we may go up to 5 or 6, but it depends on the client load that we have at the time. Our clients vary in sizes from 5 employees to 200. And many of the solutions they ask for involve some kind of tech component, and so as part of that advisory, we want to be understood.
Great. Thanks for me.
My name is Eddie Martinez, and I'm an intern with the Pro Bono Partnership.
Great. Okay, I know that took a little while, but I wanted to do it because it's always, it's always inspiring to me to hear all of the needs being represented when you bring a group of nonprofits together. I want to really applaud you all for what you do and the service that you bring to help people in need and support important causes. So thank you for what you do. What we're going to try to accomplish today is, we're not going to solve your privacy issues today. That's beyond the scope of our charter for the thing. But the goal is to make sure that, first of all, when somebody says, do you have your privacy issues under control? You know what that means. What does it mean to have a privacy issue? Is that about my files and my papers, or is it about stuff in my computers, or is it about business information? What is privacy about? So we want to make sure we define what it is and talk about what's the risk. If you don't do this stuff, if you don't address it, and believe me, we're well aware of the resource constraints. And so we really want to be practical about this discussion. What can you do if you have almost no resources? All the way up to what does Home Depot do, or Goodwill do, or people that are have to have been focused, have more resources. So we want to try to present a range of possible solutions or things you can be thinking about. And then we're going to talk and make sure you understand the law, because if you collect information about children, there's a specific federal statute that applies. Kim's going to help us understand the privacy laws that apply. Or if you deal with financial information of your constituents, there are laws that might apply. Some of you may not have any, federal legislation. It's possible. But we want to help make sure you understand kind of what's the lay of the land when you get into the laws that apply to these privacy issues. And then get more pragmatically focused and talk about what does a privacy program look like? What are its key elements? How do you begin to get your arms around that if you haven't been doing it? And also what's coming down the pipe, if things are changing rapidly. So we'll get into that, and we'll talk about the privacy policy, records management, and then the whole program. How do you manage and monitor those things over time? And then, so to get started, what we want to do is kind of do a little anatomy of a privacy breach. Before we talk about that, don't go yet. I want to talk about what is privacy, and I thought maybe a graphic privacy demonstration would be a helpful way. And I don't mean anything. So the first thing we think about in privacy is our personal privacy, right? I mean, our personal space. So if I come up to Timothy and I say, "Hello, Timothy. Nice to see you. Pleasure to meet you." That's not. We're not having any privacy issues like that. But if I come over here and get like that, I've invaded your space, right? And it feels uncomfortable, and you're, whoa, what's happening here? Well, it's an interesting thing that Americans need 2 to 4 feet of distance when we interact with people. We feel comfortable if you're 2 to 4 feet away from me. If I get inside that on what's known as your intimate space or your personal space, usually you only let your family into that space. So the reason I start there is because you all have a pretty good sense of what your privacy boundaries are with respect to your person, because it's instinctual to protect who we are, right? That's an instinct. We don't let people get close if we think they're going to hurt us. So the question is, when you start talking about privacy, we're not usually talking about personal space, although that is an important component. I mean, how many of you just waltzed into Home Depot this morning? I don't think so. So it's an important component. But today we're talking a lot more about information privacy. And when we talk about information privacy, the question becomes, well, what is privacy? So let me ask you a question. When we talk about privacy, are we talking about the information you share with your accountant?
Yes.
Think so? Well, you're right, because in a general sense, you're talking about information that you want to keep confidential. You don't want it disseminated to the world. But when you start getting into the question of privacy laws, that word is usually reserved for human beings. So I draw a distinction when we talk about privacy between information about human beings versus confidential information, which is all the other stuff that you keep confidential, but it doesn't invade someone's life if you mess up with it, right? And you'll see that most of the statutes are really focused here. So when we talk about privacy, in general, so I would say confidential information is a bigger, privacy in private data of individuals is included in that, but that's a bigger set, because business information and things like that that we want to keep confidential is in there, but it's not necessarily about human beings.
Andy, can I interject something?
You may.
By the way,
Anytime.
This varies by culture very highly. In the U.S., we're pretty used to having people kind of trade in our name and address and mail us stuff. But over in Europe, they view even your name and address as personal, and it's actually a human right on their part to be in control of that information and to see who has it, to get that back if you don't have that person's consent to have that information. And they go a lot farther in Europe. In fact, they allow corporations to have privacy rights. So you can see that that's a whole different type of a regime.
And it's a good thing to mention, because we're moving in that direction in the United States as well. And we'll see why. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about what does a privacy breach look like and how bad can it be, because it can be bad. We're going to show you. And then so the first thing is just the situation. it's getting worse out there. I'm going to, in the next slide, I'm going to show you there's 2 big privacy breaches going on right now. And how many in here have ever had, you know, a privacy breach with your personal information? Look at that. Almost all of it. I've had it. I've had a credit card. I've had somebody use my credit card in New York to buy clothing. I wasn't there. And I don't buy that kind of clothing. So it's you know, it's really becoming a prevalent thing. And so I think we can all sort of identify that there's a problem here. And when you bring it home to your companies, do I want to be part of that problem, or do I want to be doing what I can do to solve it? So the reason for it is a lot easier. The criminals, you know, have you ever heard the thing about you know, when you put the ADP sign in your is it ADP? Yeah. ADT. You know, the security thing, they say put it in your yard even if you don't have the service turned on, because if the criminal, if the burglar sees the sign, they're going to go somewhere else where they think it's an easier path in. So the criminals always look for the easy path. They're lazy. Might be why they're criminals.
Yeah. There's also, I think, one other aspect of that is it's very hard to prosecute that kind of crime. So unless it's a high-profile, huge dollar volume, they're not going to get a conviction. So it's very easy to take that information, turn it into cash, and they're gone.
Yeah. So the point of this slide is it's getting worse because it's easier than robbing banks. It's easier to steal your credit card than it is to rob a bank. All right. The thing that I want you guys to take, the first, you know, pragmatic point number 1 is don't be the easiest target, because that's who the criminals approach first. So when you think about your privacy, try to get at least a notch above the easiest guy out there. That's not very hard to practice.
Out on the tiger, just
that's right.
The next slowest guy.
All right, so the next slide, this is a really busy slide. The only point about it is that's you in the middle. And you'll see, I think we got like, if you take the six bubbles, we're talking about people that collect your data. So there's internet, medical, government, variety of things. So there's 18 categories of companies collecting your information. And they disseminate your information to data brokers. And there's another category, 9 of those. And they disseminate your information to data users. And there's another 9 of those. So your personal information is out there. I mean, there's no getting it back at this point. There's a lot of information. And it's really interesting in the U.S. how comfortable we are just sharing private information. Facebook, LinkedIn, all that stuff. We like to give our information away. We want to be known, right? Well, this is the issue, is there's a whole lot of people out there that have information about you. And all of them ought to be taking some care of with it. And many are trying. Many aren't doing it very well. So let's go to the next slide. So that's all I wanted to show, is just kind of how broad the scope is. All right, so just in April, we had 2 gigantic privacy breaches. One was, who here has kids with a PlayStation 3 or something now? Somebody got those on? All right, so PlayStation Network was hacked in April, and they released a lot of information. We're going to spend more time on this one. Epsilon, can you read those names? Target, Kroger, anybody got any credit cards with those folks? Or do business with them?
I have received 3 emails within the same day from companies, some of those companies telling me, by the way, your information is possibly breached.
It's the same email.
Yeah, same email, like 3 different companies.
So this company, Epsilon, who here has heard of that before they got their letter? Well, how'd they get your information? Your friends, Target, and I got one from Best Buy, Walgreens, they gave it to them. All right, so let's do a little disclosure. I'm not going to make you raise your hand, but if you want to, how many in here are nonprofits that sell data? Yeah. You don't really need to raise your hands, but I know because of the work I've done with nonprofits that it's not uncommon to sell your database or portions of it, and you do your best to protect it and take care of it, make sure it's not misused. but that's hard to do. You know, so you understand the issue. It's the information's going out there. Epsilon, you know, what they say is only names and emails. And I said, no, you know, a lot of people have my name and email. I don't care. But you know about phishing? You know what a phishing attempt is? Where you'll get, what's going to happen is whoever got those names and emails, if they're a bad person, they're going to send you a thing that looks like it's coming from Walgreens and say, click here, we need to update your personal information. Click here and fill out the form. And it's going to take you to a website. And it's going to look like Walgreens' website. And then you're going to put in your name and your password. And then they have it. So just the name and the email is a pretty serious issue.